With the greatest of respect, £4 million, is that a joke? It's not very much.
Well, that is part of a £250 million investment programme in police technology that was announced at the budget, covering things like knife detection technology, facial recognition, drones and a whole range of other new technology. Artificial intelligence is there as well. So this is, as I say, just part of a £250 million programme for new police technology.
So fair to say that today's announcement of a further £4 million is adding to 250. It's a minor increase then.
Well, it's spending part of that. We're specifically allocating part of that £250 million to these projects. One of those is developing new technology to scan people at a distance who are carrying knives. I saw a demonstration just yesterday from an American company developing a handheld device so a police officer could just scan people walking down the street at a distance of, 6 or 10 feet to see if they're carrying a knife, so scanning large numbers of people. That's not ready for deployment today, but I'm hoping by the end of this year it can be deployed experimentally or in a sort of test way. Mm. And if that works, as I think it will, that could really transform the police's ability to take knives off the street. I do also, by the way, support a substantial increase in the use of stop and search as well. The other technology that we're developing very rapidly, and this is being used as we speak, is live facial recognition. This is where you have a watch list of people who are wanted for serious criminal offences. That could include knife crime, but it could include drug supply, firearms offences, rape, a whole range of offences. And if somebody walks down a high street past the camera and they're on that wanted list, they'll be identified. It's incredibly accurate these days because it's driven by artificial intelligence, and the police can then make an arrest. We've used that in Croydon, the borough that I represent in Parliament, over the last 3 or 4 months. And it's led to the arrest of over 100 people who would not otherwise have been caught, including for serious offences like rape.
So perhaps we'll come to that. Good for you to clarify that the £4 million announced today is not in fact additional. Let's touch on stop and search a little bit, because you've said today in a print article that it's not used nearly enough. I was reading through the rules and regulations, so officers need a reasonable suspicion to carry out stop and search. That's a fairly subjective judgment to start with. Do you feel that by saying it's not used nearly enough, the policing minister, that might influence what is already quite a tough subjective judgment for police officers to make? Or are you trying to influence that?
Well, I would like stop and search to be used more because it takes knives off the streets. And, if knives are in circulation, then there's a risk they're going to get used. So I would like to see more stop and search. In the metropolitan...
But short of your new technology coming in that might be able to scan and reveal a knife from afar, I mean, you can't tell officers explicitly to use it more. You're influencing their judgment.
Well, it's about having the confidence to use it more. So in the metropolitan police area, stop and search has actually gone down by, I think it's 44% over the last 2 years. Some of this is about the confidence to use it where there are reasonable grounds for suspicion. They can also use Section 60 orders. That's where you designate a geographical area where there is a crime problem for a limited period of time, like 24 or 48 hours, and you can do more widespread stop and searches in that area. Stop and search takes knives off the streets. It can save lives, and that's why it's so important the power is used, of course, confidently, lawfully, of course, respectfully, but we do need to use it to keep the public safe.
You're saying it's the best foot forward for police to use stop and search. It does sort of suggest that you're aiming on the symptoms of the problem, not the cause?
Well, it's both. It's tackling knife crime on the streets through stop and search, through the new technology that I've mentioned that, as I say, has led to the arrest of 100 wanted criminals in Croydon just in the last few months alone. But we do also need to tackle the cause. So we're investing money in violence reduction units, which essentially work with young people in particular at risk of getting into crime to try and stop that happening through mentoring schemes and all kinds of other interventions. I'm also working with the Youth Endowment Fund, to which the government has provided £200 million, to develop new projects to identify in local authority areas the, let's say, 50 or 100 young people, maybe early teenagers, who aren't involved in serious crime yet, but might get involved in serious crime as they get into their mid and late teens, to intervene early and stop that happening. So we need to start by identifying them, and we're using a whole range of data sources to do that, and then make the intervention. So those kind of projects, I think, can make a real difference in stopping that sort of early teenager ending up getting into gang violence by the time they're 15, 16 or 17.
We'll be talking to the head of the Trussell Trust next hour. They're announcing today that 3.1 million emergency food parcels were handed out in the year to the end of March. Is the government disappointed by that statistic?
Well, I mean, the government is doing everything it can to support people. We're clearly, benefits have just gone up by around about 7%. They went up by 10% the previous year. The cost of living support package over the last 2 or 3 years has amounted, I think, to well over £100 billion. The minimum wage has just gone up, I think, by around about 10% as well. So, and we're seeing, record numbers of people getting into jobs as well. So, a huge amount's been done to help people into work, and then critically to make sure that work pays as well.
But I guess not done enough, or it's not actually worked when it comes to reducing the use of food banks.
We've seen food bank use grow across the Western world. What the government's doing is making sure that work pays, hence the huge increase in the minimum wage, and we're making sure the benefit system is there to support people as a safety net, which is what the Welfare Secretary and Chancellor, I think, were talking about only yesterday.
So the Times is reporting today that the government's planning to prevent schools from teaching children that they can change their gender, excuse me. Is that something that the government's planning to do? Can you clarify that?
Well, I think that is a leaked report, and I'm not going to comment too much on a report that's been leaked, and the reporting may not accurately reflect what is in the document, which I, by the way, haven't seen yet. But as a general principle, and speaking as a parent, I don't want children who are very young being exposed to inappropriate sort of sexual material at school. And the whole trans debate is a contested political issue, and that shouldn't be taught as fact to young people. So I think there are some very serious issues that need to be addressed, and I say that as a parent as well. But let's just wait and see the actual report before getting into too much of a debate on it.
But you personally would support the idea of banning teaching specifically that children can change their gender throughout schooling?
So I would just, let's wait for the report to come out. I don't want to preempt it, but as a parent, I don't want younger children in particular to get exposed to sort of explicit sexual material or get sort of drawn into these very contested political debates at a young age. As a parent, that's certainly what I feel.
Just quickly, finally, I don't know if you saw Jacob Rees-Mogg last night suggested Rishi Sunak should not just bring Nigel Farage into the party, but bring him into the government, much like he did with Lord Cameron via the House of Lords. But is that a good idea?
I didn't see that suggestion from Jacob. Who the Prime Minister brings into the government is up to him. My job is to fight crime and support the police, and that's what I'm busy doing.